You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
We'll call this meeting of Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, January 4th, 2024. I have 7:01 p.m. I'll introduce members of the commission and staff. Joe Chadwick. Joe, are you here? And Joe, I believe you're muted.
Joe Chadwick is present and holding the space bar does not unmute.
Thanks, Joe. Fred Russo. Fred, are you here?
Fred Russo is present.
Thank you, Fred. Joe Viuzzo. Joe, are you here?
Joe is here.
Thanks, Joe. And Massimo Ligori. Massimo, are you here?
Massimo Ligori is here.
Thank you, Massimo. Sharon Hutner. Sharon, are you here?
Sharon Hutner is here.
Thank you, Sharon. Our staff this evening is our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, you're here.
I am here.
Our assistant planner, Evan Brining. Evan, you're here.
Here.
And our clerk recording secretary out there in the cloud is Michelle Martin. My name is Chuck Anders, chair. We have, I think, one public hearing, which we may end up being delayed for, but I'll just go through the process for continuing the public hearing, but I'll only do that after I ask our secretary to read the notice. Fred, can you do that?
I will do that right now. Legal notice, Town of Branford. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, January 4th, 2024 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the Commission's meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Application 23-10.2, special exception for a used car sales dealership located at 544 and 558 West Main Street, Branford Real Estate LLC, in care of Arian Pravella, applicant and owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut, 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to Planning and Zoning at branford-ct.gov. Branford Planning and Zoning Commission, C. Andres, chairperson.
Chuck Anders, chair. Thank you, Fred. We'll follow our normal format for public hearings, which is that the applicant goes first, makes his presentation. If you need any assistance with screen sharing or so forth, we have Evan and Harry to help you out with that. After the applicant goes, we turn it over to the commission and staff, usually a summary of a staff report, open it up for questions, comments from commission members. At that point, we open it up to the public. We ask that you notify, Evan will explain how you can raise your hand or get our attention so we can recognize you, state your name and address for the record, and make your comments. After the public portion, we allow the applicant to respond to the public portion, and we may or may not close the hearing depending on how it goes. So that's our normal format. Evan, can you just review with us in more detail how the public can participate in this Zoom meeting?
Sure. If you're joining us today with a microphone for two-way communication on your computer, when it is requested that anyone that would like to participate from the public, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button. You can also type into the chat that you'd like to make any comments. If not, wave your hand in front of your camera. I'll try to catch you. If you're dialing in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to speak. And we'd ask that everyone please state their name at the beginning of their comment or question.
Chuck Anders, chair. Thank you, Evan. With that, we'll move to our public hearing item. Our public hearing is scheduled for Branford Real Estate LLC, care of Arian Pravella, applicant and owner. This is a special exception for used car sales dealership at 544 and 558 West Main Street. And my understanding, Evan and Harry, is that there were a number of items that additional information that was requested, including details on the survey, on the elevations, a particular type of survey, and that the applicant has requested that we open and continue this matter to our February 1st meeting to allow additional information to come in and make the presentation at that time. Is that correct, Evan and Harry?
That's correct. The applicant requested this afternoon that we continue the public hearing to February 1st.
Okay. Is anyone here on that? If you are here on that, my recommendation is that you come back, same place, remotely on February 1st. It's a 7 p.m. meeting, and then you can actually hear the presentation, and we look forward to hearing your comments at that time. So if anyone's here on that. So with that, we will continue this matter, which is, again, item number 1 of our public hearing, to our February 1st meeting. That also, again, is a remote meeting, a Zoom meeting at 7 p.m. So that's it for our public hearings. We have 2 sets of minutes to review. The first is from our December 7th, 2023 meeting, and I don't know if the people have had a chance to review that one. But if so, if someone would like an appropriate motion with respect to the December 7th, 2023 minutes.
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Motion to approve the December 7th minutes by Fred Russo. Is there a second?
Joe seconds.
Joe seconds. Okay. And I guess we need to know, Marcy's gone, so if Massimo or Sharon would be voting on this. Do we know whose turn? Who's up?
Harry Smith, town planner. I believe, Sharon, it's your turn.
Okay.
Is my understanding.
I think that is correct.
I see Massimo shaking his head also, so thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so motion been made and second to approve the December 7th meeting. All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo in favor.
Joe Vayuzo,
Ayuso in favor.
Sharon,
Sharon Hutner is in favor.
and Chair is also in favor. So those minutes are approved. That brings us then to our December 14th minutes that were also sent out to us. If someone want to make a motion with respect to the December 14th, 2023 minutes.
This is Sharon Hutner. I just have a comment. I was not at the meeting, so I don't know whether I can vote on the minutes.
Harry Smith, town planner. I believe technically you can, but you don't have to. You can abstain, and it could be a majority of. We'll still have, enough votes to pass the minutes. So
Okay.
Okay.
Just point of order, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
Sure. So with that clarification, someone may make a motion with respect to the December 14th minutes.
Chadwick makes that motion.
Motion to approve the December 14th minute by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Fred Russo will second that motion.
Second by Fred. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo in favor.
Joe Vayuzo,
Joe Ayuso in favor.
Sharon,
Sharon Hutner abstains.
and the chair is also in favor. So those minutes are approved. Any correspondence, Harry?
Harry Smith, town planner. No, there's no correspondence for this meeting.
Great. That brings us into old business, and I believe we have 3 items of old business, but all of them have public hearings scheduled for future meetings. First one is a public hearing scheduled on our next meeting on January 18th. That's a special exception for grading. The second one is a special exception for grading at 37 Branford Road, scheduled for February 1st. And the third also is a special exception for 3-family dwelling on February 1st. So each of those items will open those up for public hearings on the appropriate date. That brings us then to new business. Nothing there, but and then going down to other business. The first item Something, did I miss something, Harry or Evan?
Harry Smith, town planner. No, you didn't miss anything. We did get 3 applications though that came in after the agenda was finalized and posted very, very, very late yesterday afternoon, around 4:30, I believe, when the office was closing. So based on previous standing motion of the commission, just to reiterate that the commission previously has left to staff and the chair the determination of when a public hearing would be set. All 3 of these applications would be technically received by action of law tonight. And you and I can set the public hearing date if the commission's okay with that. I won't even go list them. I don't think it's really necessary, but unless you want me to.
That's does anyone want to know what they are? I here. I mean, okay,
no, okay.
that's fine.
We haven't even looked at them, so we don't know
Okay.
what state they're in. Just have the addresses.
Okay. Okie doke. Well, those will show up on a future agenda and we'll deal with them. Okay, that brings us into other business. And the first item is a conceptual plan review per section 5.7B4 of the zoning regulations proposed incentive housing zone development for 250 North Main Street. Is the applicant ready to proceed with that?
We do have a representative of the applicant, Emily Mitchell, and I made her a co-host. And Emily, is there anybody else I see Jason, so I'll make you a co-host also. And is there anybody else on your team that is here?
Just us. Thanks,
Okay.
Harry.
You're welcome. They should be able to share your screen as well.
Okay, I'll go ahead and put our presentation up here. You see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Jason, did you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, I can start. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having us here tonight. You know, for this meeting, you know, we're excited to be here. We've actually looked at this property for a long time, and so after talking with the seller, we finally have come to, you know, a conclusion that maybe we can move forward with this. But of course, we wanted to get in front of everybody here. So I'll give you a little background on who we
Jason,
are.
I'm sorry. Can you just? I didn't get your last name.
Yeah, I was sorry. I was about to say it. So my name is Jason. Yeah, Jason Kambitsis, Kambitsis. I'm the president of AR Development Company, which is the development side of AR Building Company. So AR Building Company is a real estate development company located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's actually 56 years old now this year. Started by one guy. He's still the same owner. He's got no partners, no outside investors. It's his projects. It's his money. And he started it with a duplex in Oakland, which is where University of Pittsburgh is, you know, 1968, and has grown into what it is today. We have over 9,000 units. We're in 14 states. We build, buy, and manage all of our own property. And so what I mean by that, and really what sets us apart from other people, is, you know, we go through this process, as you see here. We locate property, we acquire property and title it, and then we build it. AR Building Company, AR Development Company actually builds everything here with our own staff and our own people. We oversee it. And then when it's done, we manage it. So, you know, we actually keep it all in-house. So we're vertically integrated. You know, there's pictures of some of our guys. Jeff, our vice president of construction, works for me, and then Cam runs our operations. We have about 300 employees over these 14 states. Right now, we're building 1,500 units this year. And we're going to continue at that pace over the next few years. So while people have retreated and backed and slowed down on multifamily, we haven't. We've located very good sites. And since we have our own process of being vertically integrated, we're able to make this thing work. We don't have to go to a board of directors or outside people and have to sell them on it. I mean, really what we do is we work with the community and try to build the best project we can. So you can see there on the left is a project that we're working on right now. called Newport Avenue Apartments. It's in East Providence, Rhode Island, near another project that we've been working on. But this one is 142 units over one big building with a pool in the middle. Very nice project. So you can go to the next slide there, Emily. Let's give you an understanding of what the fit and finish of our projects are. So on the left here is very reminiscent of what we're talking about tonight. It's a New England style development that's in North Kingstown, Rhode Island, Reynolds Farm. So that's 5 45 unit apartment buildings, 4-storied, elevated. It's within a neighborhood. There's probably 500 houses around it. You know, that is there able to be seen. As you can look at the building, it's got brick, exact trim, Trex decking, and of course we have siding on it. We use the brick because, as I stated before, not only being the builder and the owner, you know, we want to make sure these buildings look and feel and touch and act the way they should be for decades. And by having a brick facade, it gives us the ability to have a more maintenance-free building and have a building that we don't have to come back and continue to fix, and have a building that is long-lasting and timeless. On the right's a project called Evergreen Apartments in Monroeville, PA. That's 93 units. It's one big building, sits on the Parkway, which is the main road that takes you to the Turnpike going out of Pittsburgh. So 50,000 cars pass it every day. And the bottom right is a new project we built right outside of Pittsburgh called the Regency. And again, that's a 120 unit building, one big building. A little different there. We actually have stone on the center versus the brick. We did that because of the size of the building. We wanted to break it up. You can go to the next slide. So this is kind of the interior treatments. You know, we have in the larger buildings, we have a big community space where all the residents can gather. Every project has a fitness room, as you can see there on the right. And on the bottom is a typical fit and finish of our units. So we use quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances. We have in-suite washers and dryers. Every unit has its own master bathroom, master bedroom. And, you know, we use really high-end finishes from the carpet we use to everything else. So when you look at them and you walk through them from the trim to the paint, it's all condo finishes. Again, you know, we try to make these the best way possible so they're long lasting. As a person who owns them, we don't want to get rid of them. We don't flip them to somebody else. We want to make sure we use the best products we can. Go to the next slide, Emily. So, you know, here's the location. I'm sure you're all very aware of it. I've seen the site. It's what you would call pad ready in the sense that it's been done years ago. And I think the seller maybe had different intentions. I'm not really sure, but it kind of gives you an understanding where everything's at. You can kind of see the nearby bus stops. I think one's within, you know, a few hundred feet. And of course, Branford Town Green, you know, that's 0.8 of a mile away. And I know there'll be a conversation about what that means as far as density and what that means as far as the incentive housing overlay district. You know, that one talks about being pedestrian friendly or being transit friendly. You know, this site, as we've discussed, and what's in the recommendation is we talk about a pedestrian crossing, getting us down to the bus stops. But, you know, it's kind of, I don't want to say ambiguous, but it talks about, you know, where you want to have centralized location. 0.8 of a mile from downtown. It's not that far, but again, that's up for you guys to decide. We like this site due to the fact that it is a main thoroughfare. It does have access to 95. Regionally, it makes a lot of sense. And there really is no other major site that you could add housing in Branford to this level. We feel that, you know, housing is a major issue in this country. People talk about it. People want to bring it to communities when people are being left out of the housing market. And, you know, if you're not building single family homes, there's apartments, which people choose to live in. That's what our places are. We find that, you know, we're not a path of where people, hey, I need to find an apartment. They go here. People want to live where we're at due to the quality that we have. So we feel this is a great location for that and a big addition to Branford. Go to the next slide, Emily. So here's our concept plan. You know, the buildings will be very similar to what I showed you at Reynolds Farm. This is 242 units, and we would actually have an integrated clubhouse in one of the buildings. We actually did this Usually we have it in the larger ones, but in order to make the site plan work, we actually put it in one of the buildings. So we'll actually take out a couple of units and have it in one of the larger buildings. So this is 23 units per acre is what we're showing. The incentive housing overlay district has 20. We meet the parking requirements, but we are asking for a difference in height, which we can get to in the next slide. What we have is a building that at its peak is 52 and a half feet, 52 feet. What we usually have from a height requirement regarding where they define that is usually from between the gable end and the peak, which is about 47 feet, and it's in the code as 40 feet. So really what our ask is here is, do you like the plan? Do you think it's a good plan? Furthermore, is the height okay if we were to pursue that? Is the density okay? So that's really the crux of the conversation here, and we're open to any conversation and happy to discuss it further.
Chuck Anderson here. Thank you, Mr. Kimbitz.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anything else from you guys at this point? I
No, that's all we have right now.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
great. Thank you. Harry, are you prepared a staff report? Do you want to just go over that with us?
Sure. As a matter of fact, if you folks could let go of the screen, I'll just share my report just to run people through it quickly. Thank you. Hang on one second. Okay, hopefully everyone can see the staff report. Okay. Everybody all set?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a little drier than the presentation. Essentially, I went back to the regulations in the incentive housing zone section of the zoning regulations and just looked at a couple issues. One is location criteria. As was noted, the site is not too distant from a couple of bus stops, and just I have a little graphic I can show exactly where they are, but those are no town. One is right in the frontage of the high school between the entrance and exit driveways, and that's on the south side of East Main Street as it's approaching the intersection with North Main Street. And then on the north side, right in the little island there at Food Mart is a sign for the bus stop on the north side. That bus route runs from East Main Street over to the east end of town. Rather than follow Route 1 up North Main Street, it takes East Main Street into the town center and follows that. So the challenge, and I don't think it's a giant challenge, is to connect up this development, I think, from creating a safe pedestrian route from this potential development to these transit stops to meet the locational criteria, at least number one, which here you can read proximity to public transportation, should be near a regularly scheduled route or hub of public transportation. In the past, with the incentive housing zone at Summit Place, the commission did require a sidewalk to be constructed from where the development is in sort of the back end of Summit Place through a couple of properties that were owned by others to Route 1 at that location where there was a bus stop and a signal and a crosswalk. The other locational criteria, as was noted, I think by the applicants, that the incentive housing zone development should be located within or near areas of concentrated development. To me, this is really a subjective call. I mean, how near is near? It's not the other end of town. It's not, in the middle of the town center, but could easily be determined by near, but I'll leave that to you as a commission. I'll just quickly show, here's a topographic survey of the property, and I'll go back to that in a minute. The development plan, and this, just for a piece of information, is the layout that's approved at the moment for a retail store and a smaller retail store potential restaurant site with an interconnection to the Clancy's Funeral Home parking lot between the two potential developments. So this was what was approved a few years ago, I believe in 2017. Maybe it was actually approved in 2018. I just did this really rough little sketch. I mean, at this point, the concept plan, this is 250 North Main Street. North is to the right here. And maybe I can swing that back around better. That'll be a little easier. All right. So this development exists up on, there's a driveway that goes way up a hill on a knoll up here. This Manorwood Drive. Dunkin' Donuts is over here somewhere. The high school is off down here on the left. This is the Food Mart location. There's an auto body kind of place here. And this is the 250 North Main Street site. So the concept plan shows a new sidewalk coming down all the way along the frontage of the auto body. There are two ped poles here. I'm not sure they still work. I did find a Google photo that showed them active as of a couple of years ago. That is a potential crossing, but frankly, there's no sidewalk right near the ped pole. There's a little sidewalk that wraps around and comes down from Manorwood Drive to about there. So there'd be a gap here. You need a crosswalk here, another piece of sidewalk over here, a crosswalk, drop down ramps. But then when you get to the Food Mart site, there's no real pedestrian route through there. It's just a pavement, pumps, a convenience store, and you'd also need some kind of sidewalk on the north side of East Main Street. So you get to the light at the high school entrance drive, where at that point the sidewalk jumps from the south side of East Main Street to the north side and then goes all the way down to town center. And there are other options for crossing, maybe over here somewhere where there's an existing sidewalk on the south side and there's a sidewalk here on the north side. I'll leave it to the applicant to figure out. I just think, I wanted to raise all these issues so commission could look at it and then decide whether you want to give the guy some guidance to the applicant that, as part of an application, they should be figuring all this out and creating that safe pedestrian route over to the existing transit stops. So the other issue I looked at was density. It was noted it's a little bit over at 23 dwelling units per acre. The limit in the IHC is 20. Also, I did calculations again based on the property configuration of the last approved site plan. You can see here, this is the existing survey before the site got its final approval a few years ago. In this, depiction of the property boundaries, the Clancy Funeral Home property extends all the way back here and has this little piece of land between 250 North Main Street and the I-95 right-of-way. There's this little piece of land here that's owned in common currently with the 250 North Main Street site. It has an address of 0 North Main Street. But going to the site plan, excuse me. That's the thing. Oh, here we go. You can see there's a new lot line proposed, which create a property swap. So this area would get added to 244, the Clancy Funeral Home site. This area would be transferred to 250 North Main Street, and these, two parcels will be combined. So the final site boundary, and this may have already happened, I just don't have evidence that it has, because frankly, the development has gone ahead with the phase 1 for the site, done all the excavation, created these large rock slopes. As people know, they're driven out and taking a look at it. So the property line probably already is this, but again, I'm not sure. So I based it on the density calculations on the property as it was proposed to be configured by the last approved site plan. So going back to the staff report quickly, that just gave the acreage, and I used the net acreage because I think that's been used in prior incentive housing zone approval at Summit Place. that excludes steep slopes and wetlands, and came out with 212 as the allowable number of units based on a net lot area of 10.64 acres. So, and that may or may not be right, but that's the best information I've got. So that would need to be dealt with. Design standards, of course, there's nothing specific about these particular buildings, but I do know the character of the other developments that the applicant's firm has constructed on locations. So that would seem to, address some of the standards, as far as I can tell right off the bat. And just to note, of course, there's a 20% required deed restricted affordable housing provision. So I'll stop there, stop sharing, and let me know if there are any questions.
Chuck understand. Thank you, Harry. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go around and get some, again, this is an informal session. The idea is to get some reactions from commission members. That's what the applicant, I understand, looking for. And I guess we can go ahead and do that. I don't know who wants to start. I've got a few ideas, but no preference. Fred, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do. Fred Russo. I think conceptually, I would prefer to see residential in that piece of property than commercial. I don't know about all the details. Those would have to be worked out. But when I make the comparison between that property being used as a commercial piece of property as opposed to being used as residential, I like the idea that residentially, those the tenants of the properties will use the services that are in our town. Hopefully they will, as opposed to having a commercial establishment and bringing people from out of town into our town, shopping specifically at that location, and then going back to the town. I realize there will be people from Branford that would shop there as well. But from what was originally proposed, my guess is that the reach of the commercial property or the business that would be there would be going to a lot of the other surrounding towns. And one of the things we discussed about it was that, it's in between two exits. I think it's 54 and 55, if I remember correctly. And so our concern back then, 2016, 2017, whenever it was the kind of traffic it would create. I think that, listen, whenever you put something somewhere, it's going to create traffic. But I think, in the morning time, people get in their cars and they drive wherever they're going to go to work, and then they're not there for the rest of the day. When you have a commercial piece of property, you've got traffic all the time. And I think it would be a real bottleneck if it was just commercial. So I think, as I said, conceptually, in theory, I like the idea of residential going there as opposed to a commercial. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Great. Thanks, Fred. Joe Chadwick.
I like the basic scheme. I like the idea of it. As the discussion was going on, I was trying to look at the map to understand the relationship between this site and Chestnut Street, which is also a very direct route into town, except Chestnut Street is a horror show for sidewalks. It's not the easiest thing to walk. I take that route out to the supply pond with my dog on occasion, and it's treacherous at best. In terms of the overall development, I really don't have a problem with the density at all. The percentage of overage is pretty trivial. I could probably even endorse the height. We have at different times allowed, relatively tall residential buildings, and given the separateness of this site, I don't think that there would be a contextual problem with having a cluster of tall buildings up against, vernacular buildings. I don't think the style is particularly vernacular to around here, but that's not our job to make those determinations. But all in all, I think it's, it's a good, solid idea. And I could endorse it even with the density and the height.
Thanks, Joe. I'll chime in with something and then we can move on. I had, as with anything, you have some things that that are positive and some areas of concern, and I'll kind of just give you my general reactions. The positive is that the developer seems to have a reputation of building and maintaining and some skin in the game, which is good. And then also the incentive housing, the affordable component, because I think that is that is central to what I am, that I would favor something like this, housing that is affordable, because we just need it. So there's that element there. The concerns I have were, and I'll just do a little bit of a counter to Fred, is that just on the use and the commercial versus residential. Yes, I think traffic it's going to be less for residential. I agree with that. That said, it seems like lots of the commercial stuff in town is being absorbed by residential. There is we're seeing lots of developments that wants to put multifamily residential rentals coming before us a lot right now in the areas that are commercial. And that was the metro by exit 55. I don't know how many units those are. We know that Regal Cinema has come in. They want to put some, and that's a proposed PDD on a commercial area that there's going to have a large number of apartments there. The Amazon site that was proposed as residential up by exit 53. And those are all along the road. Plus we have Atlantic Wharf, which is going to be residential, not to mention that, existing Anchor Reef and, the old MIF area, those are all being residential. So there's a sense with this town that if you're around long enough, I remember the old days where, we were the condo capital of the world, and that they were just overbuilding and we have too much multifamily. We got that reputation, and now we're doubling down and taking away whatever commercial stuff, the stuff that's zone commercial, and making that residential. And this was, I think the guy correctly says, it's probably the last big piece. So I think it's right there. That's a concern. That concern may be outweighed because of, like I said, I like the affordable component. But speaking of the affordable component, I think, you got to comply with the regulations. If there's a height limit, if there's a density, just by way of background, our multifamily zone allows 6 per acre, and 20 per acre is a big one. And that's what's in the incentive housing zone. Maybe we can get more. Maybe the zone allows for more, but that's the 20 per acre is what I thought that was the limit. And so my hope would be that if we move forward with this, or if the developer wants to move forward with it, that you comply with the regs. And if not, I don't think we can approve it because obviously, or you need to get variances because that's just the way it is. And I'm concerned with anything that doesn't comply with that. So those are my general concerns. So with that, let's move on. Massimo, thoughts?
I do. Hi, it's Massimo Ligori. So many of you guys make such great valid points. I agree with Fred that I'd rather see more residential in this area rather than commercial because of the amount of traffic, which is a great concern right now. As a matter of fact, it's so funny. I was talking to a couple of people tonight, and one of them spoke about the traffic issues that we have. And, if that became, a bigger commercial spot, I would think it would cause more traffic. I would like to keep the traffic a little bit. I'd like to see that be more residential. And also, On the contrary of, look, we have so many apartments or units in the town of Branford. Um, Plazas and stores and these spots aren't just, the businesses aren't. It seems to not be working so much anymore. The stores that are even in the plazas aren't doing well anymore. The small stores. And I'd hate to see buildings or land that can be utilized for home to be, just empty at times. And I think the time's coming where the change is starting to happen, where, strip malls, plazas, land that could be developed and, with the housing needed, I think the housing I think that's the route we're probably going to have to take. And I think the lower income housing fit into regulations are extremely important. I believe that the height, one of the conversations I had with somebody today was about Savannah, a small town in Georgia, and how beautiful that downtown area is. And they mentioned that the buildings weren't over 3 stories tall, and how quaint it was there. I'd like to keep that quaintness in the town of Branford, So I would like I love the idea of having apartments there. I would just like, Chuck, like you said, I'd like it to stick with the regulations. But I would love to see a project like this go into that area versus a commercial project. Thank you.
Great. Chuck Anderson, thank you, Massimo. Joe Vaiuso?
As everyone's talking, as I'm listening to the applicant make the presentation, and I'm trying to think positives and negatives, and you guys came up with pretty much everything, both sides. Positive for some residential, but the negatives of residential, we're getting, like you said, Chuck, we're getting really top heavy with this residential, and I like to see a good balance in this town of residential and industrial or commercial, and it seems like the commercial sites are being gobbled up or are attempting to gobble up for residential. And you mentioned all the things I was thinking of Commercial Parkway and where the theater is, and these are all high density units that they're proposing or want to propose, and now this one's coming in. And they're not, and they're high density, and they're making them even more density. They're asking for more over and above what our regulations are, and I think we've got to. I don't have all the answers, but I'm a little concerned about the densities, especially over there. You're going to get a lot of foot traffic. I think more foot traffic there because you are so much closer to town, and we're going to have to start thinking about sidewalks or more walking traffic, and for that particular area. And I think residential will be good there over commercial because anything like any kind of retail there is going to be a real bottleneck on traffic because there's. Even though you're in between two entrances there from 95, and no matter which way you come from, it's going to be unless some really major improvements are done on the roads, you're going to have some really high traffic situations. We have it now at certain times of the day that it's backed up, especially going towards exit 55. But I like to see the density be a little less. I'd rather see 3 floors instead of 4. I'm counting when I saw the pictures. I'm thinking I'm seeing 4 floors. I think that's a little much. The height and the density could be turned down a little bit. I think it would be a little bit of a plus on in my way I'm thinking. But overall, I think residential might work a little bit better there, but at the same time, we're taking away good commercial property. Higher taxes are generated on that property, and less services to the town, that the cost of the town. So, we need to keep a balance of residential and commercial to keep our tax base more reasonable in this town. So, but everybody's having some good ideas here, and I need more time to think about it. But right now, that's what I'm thinking right now.
Okay, just share. Thank you, Joe. Sharon?
Yeah, hi, Sharon Hutner. I'm agreeing with a lot of the points that people are making in terms of using this piece of property for residential. And I think that what Massimo was saying about retail not doing very well in brick and mortar places these days is quite true. I have one more concern, not only about the density of the development, but the sustainability of the development. I just was wondering if the builders know that Branford is a town that's committed to sustainable development, and that we have a Branford energy plan, and that we have a net zero energy policy for any kind of building and renovation that will be going on for our municipal buildings. And so I was just wondering if the builders have taken any consideration into energy efficiency systems such as solar or infrastructure for electric vehicle charging stations, or use of heat pumps in their heating and cooling mechanisms, and of course the use of native plants for landscaping. So I would just like to put that bit of information in the builder's ear and hope that they will take that into consideration when they come back with any or another design. I am again agreeing with Chuck in terms of wanting to go along with the regulations and keep it within the amount of density that this town can handle. But I again think that we need housing, and absolutely we need affordable housing. So that's how I feel about it.
Chuck Anderson. Thank you, Sharon. Just so the applicants or developers know that there's one member, Marcy Pelusi, who's has some great opinions on things. She's not here this evening, so you don't have the benefit of her comments. So with that, does anyone else have any further comments before we turn it back to the applicant, the staff, or commission members?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I just maybe point up. It sounds like it's implied, but I'm not sure it's crystal clear that you seem to be in agreement with my comments that you really need to create a safe pedestrian route to the transit stops and the sidewalk that goes to the town center as part of the proposal. Is that a fair statement or not?
Yes, I would think that this is Sharon Hutner again. I would think that any kind of development needs to be pedestrian friendly.
Right. It's Chuck Anderson. Yes, absolutely. But Harry, was the question to the applicant or?
No, I think it was really to the commission.
Oh, no, I agree with you 100%, Harry.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that I agreed with your comments, and I think that was echoed that,
Okay. Yeah.
Just the number of units, and the whole walkability. I mean, that's why we've had sidewalks on Route 1, frankly. And it's coming together, and why would we not do it here when there's, a major residential development, and yeah, that I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little above beyond what's typically look at the frontage of the development, but with this incentive housing zone, there's the additional locational criteria and the sort of past practice of making sure there's a connection to a transit stop. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think anyone else have any further comments?
Joe Chadwick, just one minor comment. I mean, there's been some inference about the preciousness of this site as a potential business site, and the fact of the matter was this was a big rock a couple of years ago, and there was an awful lot of bodice clutching over, oh my God, they're pounding this rock and trees out of our town to make a commercial pad. And now we can't support commercials, so we have this sort of massive landscape scar. And residential is as good as we can get right now, and I think that's not bad.
Thanks. Check in. Thanks, Joe. I mean, part of my reaction is that it's squeezed between Route 1 and 95. And during the warm months, you open your window, you're going to hear traffic. And that's kind of sight. It just seems to me, well, maybe that's where commercial should be. But I agree with everyone says there's going to be more traffic, and you know, the commercial hasn't been going there. But I think we can see that this is happening everywhere, and it's kind of a concern. So
yeah. One of the comment I guys would have is looking at the development that was done by MetroStar out the former Days Inn site, where they put a lot of parking under the units in the first floor of the units. First floor of the buildings they're building. That might open up the site a little more and allow the opportunity for some more greenery, and I think that might help with the creating sort of the livability of the site. It's sort of a in effect, it's the bottom of a quarry pit, kind of, right now, because that's what's happened to it. I mean, more to Joe's comment, I think it was never really pristine. I think it started out as a borrow pit for 95, so it was pretty altered already. And then the last go around, really, in leveling it down, really, took almost all natural features outside of the wetlands in front out of the site. So trying to use landscaping, I think, creatively and keeping as much green as you can would be really helpful, I think, in the development of the site. If you like, I mean, I did, come up with some stats, and I've had these for other reasons on the amount of residential development, just so you kind of the total picture of what's going on lately in town. I mean, I'll just list them and give you a total, but in terms of the new residential multifamily projects, either approved and not built or approved and under construction, to go. Summit Place is broken into phases. So there's 48 units left to build in the last phase, phase 3. The old Days Inn property, the MetroStar, that's 188 units. 10 of them will be affordable. In Summit Place, there are 10 affordable units being created out of that 48. There's a 12-unit building with no affordable units being created at, I believe it's Mill Pond Road, exits off of East Main Street, right near the Branford River, crossing underneath Route 1 Main Street. The little development down at Good Sell Point, 15 units. Now, this is off Route 1 again, also 61 Bourbon Drive, the old hospice site, the monastery is 59 dwelling units there. 6 of them will be affordable, deed restricted. And as the Atlantic Wharf project, which I understand the developer still wants to do that, that's 205 dwelling units right on Meadow and Montoise, the old Atlantic Wire site. And we've got Mariner's Landing being built out. There's 147 units being constructed there. The 8 units of Sterling Ridge. There's those 3 units that are all done at the bottom of Church Street and Meadow Street. And Parkside Village is creating 17 additional units above the 50 that are being demolished. So you add all that together, that's 702 dwelling units that are approved, waiting to be built, not started, or approved and under construction. And that doesn't account, there's a few single family developments, but not much. And on a pre-application level, the Regal Cinema site, they're proposing 116 dwelling units on Route 1. And the last conceptual plan we had for the former Amazon site at the Shapiro property at Commercial Parkway at exit 54, is 436 dwelling units. So that's together, the 116 to 436, that's a real number. It's 552. So add that to 702, you're talking over 1,000 units. So just to give you the overall picture. We're about town at 28,000, give or take now.
In my opinion, that's a lot of extra units a lot of extra facilities that are service that this town is going to have to accommodate, and now we're talking this one here is a proposal of 200. I think he said 226 or 230 or something. These numbers are just getting mind-boggling. How high? What it's going to have to. I mean, it's nice to have the units, but it's also services that can this town accommodate. What's the town's responsibility to upgrade and enlarge all these extra services that we're going to have to come up with? I mean, it'd be nice to get an idea about that.
Yeah. We do live under the gun of, the 830G process. So, I mean, most of these, except for Parkside Village, have been through the normal, either a planned development district or in some place incentive housing zone. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I've had comments from a couple of town departments, but on the other hand, all the comments that were made here are accurate too. I mean, the strip retail along Route 1 is getting pretty soft in terms of its viability, and looking out, it doesn't, I think it's pretty debatable it's going to come back. I mean, I think additional housing units might help it a little bit, actually. So it is a trade-off, and how much is too much and all that is, I don't think we're going to see the impact till a lot of these things are actually built out in terms of additional traffic and service demand and so forth.
What Joe Chadwick again. What I think is truly remarkable about all this is the optimism on the part of developers to be building to this extent. I talk to a lot of people who have retired elsewhere, and they can't say enough good things about whatever southern town they ended up in, unlike back home or back north. And I look at New Haven, and it's the platform buildings that are going up in New Haven are just staggering. I almost don't recognize the town anymore. We're looking at this increase of population. It's like people want to live here, and generally things like business follow people. So, from my standpoint, this is just an optimistic thing. This is a good thing. It may be a few more people. It may be a little longer at a light sometimes, but eventually people will learn manners and learn how to drive, and it might not be so bad. But the fact that there is this much interest in this level of investment, I just find that to be a heartwarming thing.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Joe. Any other comments from anyone?
Chuck, Fred Russo. I'd like to just say a couple more things. One is, I think, the real dilemma that we all face as a town is, I think what Joe Ayuso said is right. You'd like to have a good balance between residential and commercial, but we don't have a choice with that often. The land is there. It's been mentioned, the various commercial pieces of property that are still available. And no one's beating the door down to put a commercial development in there. And I think, a classic example is where Amazon, which I thought would have been a very good tenant on the property in Commercial Parkway, for their corporate reasons, not because we did or discouraged them. I think we actually proved it. They pulled out of it. So the needs of the community are not always driven by what we want. I mean, we're here to listen and whatever, but what comes before us? I think about the theater. It's not successful. They're out of business, and there's not another theater looking to come in. Summit Place was office space. There's no one looking to go in those office spaces. That developer could have said, "Hey, there was a demand for office space. I'll put elevators in. I'll rehab the buildings." That wasn't done either. And so, I think the dilemma that we're faced with is we really don't have a choice in terms of who goes on the property if they meet all the regulations that are set up. So in agreement with you, Chuck, I agree that the fact that there is this demand we don't have to go way out of our way and say, well, let's do it so that we're bending over backwards. I think the regulations are fair. Other developers have followed those regulations, but I think in the big picture, and I agree with Joe Chadwick as well. With the height, I mean, that's pretty tall, but the ones on Summit Place are pretty tall too. What makes it less conspicuous is where it's located. These buildings, even though they might be, if that's what the final design is going to be, 52 feet, it's isolated. It's up against nothing else to show the height. And as a matter of fact, there might be a good sound barrier in general, the back sides of those buildings. Someone likes to live in that kind of environment. What is it for us to say you can't live there because it's a highway behind you? As spaces become less available to build anything, commercial, residential, it is what it is. And so I think that the fact that box stores are not really making it, I think internet has killed the box stores. Okay, Amazon and all these other ones, every box store that's out there, whether it's Target or whatever, it could be a sporting goods store, they all have websites that they do business from. And that might be where the trend is. We may not lose our little mom and pop shops in the center of town, but they're never going to be the bulk of where the commercial property is. The big stuff, it looks like just by the forces of nature, are shrinking. And other forces are taking over those spaces, but in a different way, in a virtual way rather than a brick and mortar way. So I think that, our dilemma is, how do you balance it? I don't know if there's an answer to that. I think when you have vacant property that's been sitting there, and the one we're talking about has been sitting there a long, long time. They were approved. They could have put a commercial building up there. I'm sure the property was looking for them. They can't find them. Commercial Parkway, the same way, they can't find them. So when it's all said and done, what we need to do is just, accept what is coming our way, make the developer toe the mark by our regulations, not by our personal preferences, and hope that in the end, the town benefits by it. I mean, I don't know what other things we can do that could prevent it. I would never vote against it on a personal feeling. That's not fair to the developer. Probably get us in a lawsuit, as a matter of fact. So I say if they can present something that meets our regulations, it's okay. There might be some fudging here and there. I don't have a problem with that either. I agree with Joe Chadwick. When you're in an isolated area, you put up a building that's 10, 12 feet higher, probably no one's going to see it. And where it's butting up against is a highway, might be a good thing. So I think, it's good. What we're seeing now is going to happen more and more. It's the Commercial Parkway against an exit. It's this project at East Main against the highway. That's what's out there. That's what's available. It's where we would think, at least traditionally, that's a good place for commercial property. It doesn't seem like that's what commercial property developers are looking for anymore. Maybe they're not looking at all anymore. Maybe that whole phase. I know the mall in Milford. I have a friend of mine who had a food establishment there. He ended up closing it down. There's not enough business. His thought was, and it's going to happen, I think, they're going to close the mall down and make housing out of it. So it's not just Branford, it's everywhere. And there is a need for housing. And I'll tell you, I've become more convinced that there's a need for affordable housing, okay? And I think that when people really look into that whole concept, this is something, obviously the bigger the project, the more affordable housing is available through the project. I don't know what the magic number is. If 242 is a magic number, or 220, or it doesn't matter. But I think conceptually, that's what's important. We're serving a different need that the community is asking for, and I think that's what our role is to acknowledge that need and then try to tailor something that's fitting for our town. So that's my thought on it. Thank you.
Chuck Inster. Thank you, Fred. Any other comments from anyone? Okay. Does the developer have any further comments?
Yeah, hi, it's Jason Gambitsis again. I really appreciate the conversation. I think it, really talks about the issues and how they are globally. I mean, I can kind of hit some of those things very briefly because I don't want to take up all your time. we talk about the need for housing, and it is a growing need everywhere. Country's got, a dearth of 6 million housing units, and we say there's a lot coming, and, people do want to live in these areas. I mean, we're all through the coast here. I mean, the closest place we probably have is somewhere we're building in Meriden, we're building in Brookfield. We have 3 projects in New London, another one coming. So, we know this area as far as people who don't live there can know. And, there is a high demand for people to want to live there. Regarding sustainability, that's a good question. I mean, we do use heat pumps in all of our buildings. We do create them to be electric car charging ready. We actually do install a certain level of car chargers on the site. We have looked at solar many times. It still doesn't get there yet for offsetting stuff, but our buildings do meet all the codes. They're very tight as far as energy efficiency goes, and we use all Energy Star appliances. So we do that. And the conversation about the use of the location and how it affects the sound on the highway, we actually find that people want to live near the interstate. We have a lot of projects like that, and you'd almost think it's counterintuitive, but people do want to be there. But these are all really good stuff. I mean, I think this is really worthwhile for us, and we're going to come back with something. I think this is this is really beneficial to us, and we want to come back with a plan. I know that people talk about the affordability, and I know on your plan of conservation, I think it's page 96, talk about creating affordable housing in order to get beyond 830G. And that's kind of how we view this is, we don't want to go through that process and things get jammed down people's throats. Rather, we can create that affordability through this project by utilizing the codes that already exist. So again, we do appreciate everybody's time tonight, and we'll be back.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Kambitzis.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. Our next item on the agenda is number 2, a possible traffic peer review for 325 East Main Street. Harry, what's that about?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. This is the Regal Cinema site. In anticipation of an application being made, actually, just as an aside, an application is made in the Wetlands Agency, and they've approved a development plan from their viewpoint. In anticipation of an application being made, we talked to the applicant in a couple of meetings and suggested that they get a jump start in traffic study, since it's possible the commission would require a peer review, and that would take time that they'd probably rather have, if we could do it ahead of time and keep the process that they would like moving at the schedule they'd like it to move at, that's preferable, I think, to everyone. So they did come up with a traffic study as they were formalizing their final plan in the wetlands and for the P&Z commission. And we received that in-house. It was reviewed by the town engineer. I think we sent in your packet a letter from the town engineer. We do have it here. I could probably put it up, but I don't know if he did have some questions. If you want me to put it up, I will, but I don't have it right to hand. He had some questions about whether all the potential traffic to be created by the development at the former Days Inn site was accounted for, and a couple of other issues. And suggested a peer review would be appropriate. So we've solicited around our on-call list. I think I have a few firms all ready to submit proposals if the commission wants to give a go-ahead to the peer review. It's totally up to you. You're not bound by the town engineer's opinion, but I mean, he is even though he's not a traffic expert, he is a professional engineer and has taken a look at it and suggested, there are some comments, things that need to be looked at, and that a peer review is appropriate. So I'll leave it there. Then if there's anything else you want to add, he's been doing some of the mechanics of at least getting firms lined up to potentially submit proposals on it and so forth. But at this point, we're just waiting for the commission.
Okay, we'll go down. I would be agreeable. I think we should get a peer review. The town engineer, our internal guys recommend it. I assume there would be some public interest in that. Everyone always mentions traffic issues and would want to make sure that we reviewed it and we're satisfied with it. So I'm good with it. Joe Chadwick, what are your thoughts?
I believe peer reviews are very beneficial, and we should proceed.
Great, thanks. Fred?
I agree with Joe. I think we should have a peer review on the traffic, definitely.
Great. Joe Vayuzo?
Yeah, I also agree. I think we should start doing it more often than not, especially in light of what we just were talking about on the other applicant.
Right. Sharon?
Yep, Sharon Hutner. I think if the town engineer is recommending it, then it probably would be a good idea to do it.
Great. Massimo?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Okay, there's your
Okay.
here you can proceed with that. So
All right. Thank you.
okay.
That's all contingent on the application actually being made, which it has not been yet, just to make that point. But I assume we expected it before the meeting, but so we had it all teed up.
Okay, great. Excellent.
Thank
okay.
To be
Brings
prepared.
it it brings us to our next item under other business, which is interpretation of site triangle definition of wording, section 2.2. So who's going to present that question?
I think Evan's got some things he could show you on the screen and give an intro to the question being asked to the commission.
So we're essentially asking you guys today for how high objects should be allowed to be in our site triangles. Just so everyone knows, our site triangles are spaces at intersections that we try not to have things that might block motorist visions. Section 612C5 reads, each driveway shall be located so as to ensure adequate sightlines for vehicles to exit the drive with minimum hazard or disruption of traffic. And then we have a definition for our site triangle area, which is a triangular shaped area measured from the edge of pavement at the intersection of a public road, private road, or driveway, within which nothing may be erected, placed, planted, or allowed to grow in such a manner as to limit or obstruct the vision of motorists. And here's a little diagram of measuring 25 feet up a driveway or a road, and then 25 feet up the road that it intersects with. And we take those two 25-foot measurements, draw a line in between them, and that gives us this site triangle where nothing may be erected, placed, planted, or allowed to grow in such a manner as to limit or obstruct the vision of motorists. Recently, we've been getting some inquiries, and we don't have anything in the regulations that we can pin down to say objects can't be any higher than X amount of feet. But back to that original section I showed you, the continuation of that says for the minimum site distance shall be determined by AASHTO standards based on prevailing speed of traffic and on the classification of the intersected roadway. AASHTO Green Book also has a measurement in there for how high any objects can be. So any landscaping, any stone walls or smaller structures, and any signage in that site triangle area. And they describe or they say, in making this determination, it should be assumed that the driver's eye is 3.5 feet above the roadway surface, and that object to be seen is 3.5 feet above the surface of the intersection road. I think this number comes from some sort of average of the height that motorists' heads are, whether it's a big truck or a small sports car. It's probably somewhere in between those. So we were hoping that you guys could maybe give us, a number that you guys feel is appropriate. We were planning to piggyback off of the AASHTO standard that I'm showing you, but we wanted to have you guys confirm it.
Great. Thank you, Evan. So the question is, and there is a definition in the regulations of site triangle, and it shows the dimensions, the length and the width, how you calculate it. But for the height issue as to how high it could be, again, it says in a manner as to limit or obstruct the vision of motorists entering or leaving such roadway or driveway.
That's
So
right.
it's the height is made by reference to where the motorist is sitting in the car, as to whether that's an obstruction. So it seems to me the methodology you just explained, which is go by the AASHTO standard, and if it is accurate that the average person or whatever it is 3.5 feet or whatever the number is above the road surface, that seems like what it should be. It should be any higher than that because it would obstruct your vision. I bet, but I guess, I mean, if you're looking for a solid number, I mean I think that makes sense, but I don't know what to do. Others have any thoughts?
There's so many variables in that situation. It's for me. I understand what you're saying. There's a lot of intersections that you got to really stick out to try to get past some of the obstructions that are there, like you just mentioned: stone walls, shrubbery, trees, telephone poles. Sometimes I don't understand why they put a telephone pole right there. They couldn't move it 10 feet in another direction. You're looking at a telephone pole, and you got to move up a little farther to get past it. So, and now you're sticking out half into the road. There's so many intersections like that. It really, there's a lot of dangerous situations out there with obstructions, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, 3 feet high, 3.5 feet high, to me doesn't seem like it's enough. I think it has to be. It has to, there's a lot of things out there that are far higher than 3.5 feet. I don't know what the answer is. I'm making comments on no technical numbers because I really don't have that data in front of me. I can't. But I'm saying there is a problem with some of these corner intersections having a lot of obstructions in the way. I don't know what the real answer is.
And
Go ahead, Joe.
no, I was saying, experientially, Joe Chadwick speaking. Experientially, Joe Vayuso hits a lot of points on the head really well. As I'm looking at the diagram, I am not clear as to whether the base of the XY dotted line triangle also includes a sidewalk. Because if you say, okay, AASHTO is about cars and driving and optimizing speed and well-built roadways. If you have the public road Y, the base of the triangle of the XY dash line, a sidewalk in there, and you have a kid or a dog on the sidewalk, and they're below the 3.5 foot vision height, assuming that we're saying you can have a 3.5 foot high thing anywhere in that triangle, that's a problem. If you want to have ornamental plantings at the intersection of the X leg and the dotted line for the hypotenuse, if you could start at 3.5 feet there and taper down to nothing at the entire Y, you can still have some form of planting and some kind of landscaping, and you would have a more optimized vision cone to exit the driveway. I am amazed how obstructed many streets and driveways actually are. And the enforcement of this is going to be some kind of trick. I'm sure we're only going to be able to get away with it on new work, but I believe that triangle needs to taper along the hypotenuse from the high point at X dash line down to the base Y. To give the most realistic view of what's going on as you're exiting a drive.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. I mean, that good sense. I think right now you're just looking to interpret what the regulation says.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think, this is sort of the standard definition when we put this in the reg. That was what we came up with. You raise a lot of good points, Joe. And I think we should review them with the town engineer, but we just picked out something from the AASHTO manual, found the 3.5 feet, and that's the standard. Frankly, I was told years ago that that's sort of the magic number that they calculate sight distance at and look at, well, what's at that height and the speed of traffic, X distance, X down the road. There's a factor of safety, and they make assumptions about the speed of the traffic and so forth. But that may change, or there may be more nuances about how that should be all calculated and addressed in the AASHTO guidance, and maybe simply deferring to the AASHTO standard 3.5 feet or whatever lower number is appropriate for a particular situation based on standard engineering practice. Would be, I think, how we think we need to go to standard engineering analysis for something really to be defensible. And it's not anything we're experts at, of course. So we'll talk about all this with the town engineer. But if that makes sense to you, that it really should be that 3.5 feet or whatever other number that's lower based on whatever the situation might be or whatever AASHTO might, as the engineering standard might recommend or dictate.
For what it's worth, Chuck Anders here. I'll give you a real life example. The intersection of Cherry Hill Road and Cherry Street. This is where the old senior center is, where we used to have our meetings.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Richland Plaza. There was a series of shrubs, if you're coming out of Cherry Street, that was just overgrown, and it really did block the sight distance. They were trimmed, and you can actually see now, because I go that way a lot, and I don't know what the height was, but it was a real difference. I mean, it was
And I do appreciate the comment about the sidewalks, and maybe we can relook at our definition and set the side triangle so it's not the edge of pavement, it's the edge of pavement or the end of the sidewalk, or the end of the right of way. So it's just, you have more area within the site triangle, if you will, because you're setting it further back from the actual point of the intersection.
And sort of an interesting point is AASHTO contemplates maybe a little bit better than lawful travel speeds. And I know that on our little street, trying to pull out of a driveway with adequate sight distance, there are people coming over the hill like Steve McQueen and Bullet. I can see their suspensions sometimes. And that's,
Yeah, there will be some changes to Roger Street in particular because of the Mariners Landing project. So there's going to be a little traffic calming going on there. But yeah, there's several streets that are problematic, and there's little cut throughs, and it's not the only one, of course. And people tend to speed down them, and it's really inappropriate.
So that means I can't throw Naley boards out in the street anymore.
I just say la 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 la. I don't hear anything. I hear nothing.
Only theoretically, not as a matter of public record.
There we go.
Harry, Massimo Ligori, real quick. I think since we're on this subject, I think one of the biggest obstructions that I've noticed when I've been driving lately are the off-street parking spots that are close to the corners. I thought I didn't know. I was like, man, is this getting harder because I'm getting older, or are these parking spots real close to the corners and I can't see what's coming?
Yeah, they're supposed to be set back a certain.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they're supposed to be set back a certain distance. And I mean, I know on my street, there's somebody who parks beyond the sign, closer to the corner, and it becomes a problem when you're trying to get out of there, and it's tight anyway. And there is I believe a town ordinance that says it needs to be X feet back, and it's signed appropriately. I don't know, the adequacy of the distance. I'm not going to comment on that, but there is a requirement, and I'm not sure it's being followed by people actually parking the cars.
Okay, so we do have a certain rules though that.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'll check it out and get back to you, because I know the signs are set back, at least on the street I live in. You can only park so close to the intersection.
Yeah, that's become a pretty serious problem lately with me driving, at least.
Yeah.
Trying to get into a certain road or whatever where the cars are too close to the corners. Maybe that should be brought up maybe and checked out. I think it's important.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll take a look.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments on this site triangle issue? Evan, do you need anything else? Should we give you some direction? I think that's the AASHTO standard or less was the, if necessary.
Fair enough. I think or less is a good idea, just because landscaping can grow over time, and
right.
Fair enough.
Yep. Great. Okay, that brings us into item number 4, which is planner's report. Harry, what's going on?
Harry Smith, town planner. I'm attempting to codify into draft zoning regulation amendment language the discussion on the 14th of December, where there was a clear consensus of the commission. So hopefully I'll be getting something back to you, if not the next meeting, the meeting after that, and we can start that process. And we still have our other issues, so at some point we do have, I think, a 5 Thursday month in February. So depending on the load on the agenda, either we can do it at a regular meeting or another special workshop if you guys want to take another stab at another group of issues to talk about, and go back to some of the ones I think you request a little bit more research and thought be given to.
Great. Thanks, Harry.
Evan, is there anything else you can think of?
Nope.
Okay, that's it?
That's it.
Okay. Anyone else got anything? Not then, I guess someone will make a motion to adjourn.
Fred Russo makes that motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by Fred. Is there a second?
Sharon Hutner seconds it.
Second by Sharon. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo?
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuso?
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Sharon?
Sharon Hutner is in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. So, good night, everyone.
Good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.